A near epic comeback foiled by a bad bounce. Welcome to NHL Wraparound Stanley Cupdate for Sunday, June 7th, 2026. Vic Morren, Neil Smith, and Craig Button had suggested to us during our Stanley Cup Finals preview, Neil, that perhaps he come back after maybe 3 games and we can look at our predictions, look at how the series going, and look who we have.
I know, it's fantastic. We get more of him. And he's even got that shirt on that you wanted to buy from him.
Well, I love it. But one of the things that we want to look at, as I just said, was our predictions from the start of the series, before everything began. And one of the things that you added, Mr. Smith, was the number of goals scored, because you wanted to get back into the race. You know, you were in bronze medal position. And I'll remind you, Neil, that you have 27 goals predicted for the final. I have 33, and Craig has 32. There have been 25 goals scored after only 3 games, so we're almost toast already.
Yeah, certainly on the goal prediction we are.
You're giving up too early. I mean, it could be 1-0, 1-0, 2-1.
Neil could also wear your shirt by the time this show is over, but it's just been remarkable so far, the amount of goal scoring and the inability of teams to lock down games. And Craig, we're glad to have you with us for this show, but the first thing we're going to do here is I'm going to go through the game, and then we're going to open our discussion to what happened in a wild third game. 5-4 Vegas over Carolina in double overtime after blowing a 4-0 third period lead. The news to start this game, Brandon McNabb into the lineup for Vegas. Remember, he got hurt by that Nikolai Ehlers shot in game number 2, got hit on the visor, came back wearing a full cage, played 35 minutes and 47 seconds, had a couple of assists in this game. So really a warrior out there. But scoreless first period, Carolina outshot the Golden Knights 7-2. And then Tomas Hertl opened the scoring on a setup from Jack Eichels 10 seconds into a power play due to a Carolina bench minor for too many men. This goal comes midway through the second period. Then Mitch Marner with the fastest hat trick in finals history, 6 minutes and 10 seconds. His first came 16 seconds after the Hertl goal. Kind of a backhanded blind shot towards the net that got deflected in by Sean Walker. The second came off a terrible clear by William Carrier, who eventually left the game later due to injury, and that was picked off by McNabb, who got it to Marner for the second goal. And then the third came off a fan by Alexander Nikishin, then an outlet pass by Hertl. So his record, 11 seconds faster than Rocket Richard back in 1957. All told, 4 goals in 6:26. Also in that second period, the Golden Knights also had 2 goals disallowed, one on an offside and one on a goalie interference call. So third period, Freddie Anderson pulled for Brandon Bussi. I thought the only goal there that maybe he could have stopped was the last one by Marner. But Bussi comes in, stops a Marner penalty shot at 4:04 of the third. And then the onslaught begins. Carolina scores 3 times in 39 seconds. Jordan Martinook off some good board work, and he converts to make it 4-1. Then Taylor Hall from Aho after a McNabb mishandle makes it 4-2. And then Jordan Stahl tips in a Jacob Slavin shot from along the boards to make it 4-3. 2 minutes and 55 seconds left. Delay of game penalty on Shea Theodore for throwing the puck over the glass from his own end. And Andrei Svechnikov jams in the rebound from the crease. Nikolai Ehlers was driven into the net by Nick Dowd, but no challenge by John Tortorella here. First overtime, ebbs and flows. I thought better chances by Carolina, and I thought Vegas looked nervous. But at 5:38 of the second, it's Theodore's shot from the point. Karam's off the end boards. And how many goals have we seen like this earlier in the playoffs that come off the end boards? It jumps over Martin's stick, hits the left skate of Bussi, and we have a 2-1 series lead for Vegas. So now that I am flushed and red in the face, guys, what's your take on this?
Well, I mean, it's exactly how I thought it would play out from the beginning of this series. I thought it would be high scoring. I thought there'd be lead changes. I thought there'd be all kinds of coaches' challenges that went one way and not the other way. I think what I've learned in the 3 games is just when you think a team might be down, they stand up and go, no, we're not. No, we're not. And I think that speaks to an unbelievable resiliency by both these teams. We saw it in game 1. We saw it in game 2. We saw it in game 3. And Vic, you talk about that first overtime. I thought the same as you. I thought Vegas looked really nervous. It was like, okay, we got to be really tight. We don't want to do anything where this could end up being on the wrong side. They get the fortunate bounce. But just when you think there's a certain declaration of where a team is at, the other team says, not so fast. And I think it's been drama, suspense. It's been compelling. It's been exciting. I mean, I know at the beginning of the play, who's going to watch Vegas, Carolina? If you're not watching this series, you're missing something I think that is really special.
It really has been unique, Greg and Vic, so far in this 3 games that we've watched. If you think about all 3, how crazy the scoring has gone back and forth. But I got to say, if I'm Carolina, and not that I've coached before, but I've managed, and if I was Carolina, I'd be thinking to myself, guys, we're better than them. If we can take care of Marner, which they need to do something on Marner for sure, because right now he's like Connor McDavid in this series. He's got the Conn Smythe trophy right now under his arm, under his bed. Yep. We got to do something about Marner. And look, they scored 2 unbelievable fluky goals on us last night. We've got to keep doing what we're doing. We've outplayed them in most of each of the games. And we've each won an overtime game. They won the first game. But if I'm Carolina, I'm thinking we got to keep doing what we're doing, but we got to be careful about Eichel and Marner. Their whole deal is those 2 guys. But what a series. If you want excitement, you want goal scoring, you want something that would appeal to a national TV audience. And I know it's 2 teams that aren't huge population bases, but man, oh man, you're getting so many storylines coming out of this thing.
I got to say something real quick, Vic. Like he says, you got to watch for Eichel and Marner. In 1994, do you know what the New Jersey Devils and Vancouver Canucks were saying? We got to watch for Messier and Leach. Yeah, it's great that you watch for them, right? And you got to be aware of them. It's a whole different story trying to stop them.
That is for sure. And I don't know. I'm watching Marner out there, and I'm wondering, how is he doing? Like, he is one of the best players I've seen play the game all of a sudden.
And of the 3 of us, Craig picked Marner as one of his Conn Smythe Trophy candidates because all 3 of us went back and forth on this. And Marner could win this even if they do not win the series.
Agreed.
Right?
But I got to tell you something. I do not think we will live to ever see that again in the playoffs. I think the Connor McDavid thing 2 years ago was so bad where he didn't come out on the ice. And why would he? I wouldn't have gone out on the ice either. I just don't think you're ever going to see the voting go to a losing team player ever again.
So can I ask you this question, Neil and Vic? I think that's a fair statement. But if we had to pick somebody right now for Carolina, who would it be?
Stankoven.
But listen to the question in your voice there. That speaks volumes, actually. But before we get there, could you see any reason that these teams that have shown the ability to lock down their opponents have simply not been able to this point? And we've said 25 goals in this series, 18 have been scored after the midway point of the second. So that stat alone tells you how many goals are being scored on the back end of games. And that these 2 teams in a championship level series where defense is usually paramount, and we have not seen it in the second half of games.
I think both these teams are good offensively. And the way the game is played now with transition, I even think in the last 3-4 years, it's even advanced more in transition. And now you got the long change in the second period. And these teams are so wired. And certainly you're this deep in the playoffs, there is a fatigue factor. And teams are just like, you make a mistake, it's going the other way. You think about Marner's hat trick goal, the third goal. I mean, that play is inside the Vegas zone, and 5 seconds later, it's in the Carolina net. And just the way the players are conditioned. And again, when you know there's not a lot of room out there and the games are a little bit tighter, you're now looking for these transition times and moments. And I think both these teams are really good in that regard.
And I think, too, one of the reasons you're seeing the scoring is that you're getting so much secondary scoring. I know I just talked about Marner and how well Marner's playing, but I mean, Howden, did you ever expect this to come from him? I mean, he has been just unbelievable. And those goals that were scored, Vic, you named them off. Jordan Staal isn't known as a big goal scorer. He tips one in. Taylor Hall is playing like he did on New Jersey. It's incredible. I'll just go and put my foot in my mouth. I thought he was done in Chicago. I did. I thought he was done. And all of a sudden, he somehow gets into the trade and ends up in Carolina and has been great. Jason Blake's son, boy, has he been good, huh? Secondary scoring's been amazing. And I got to tell you, if Carolina didn't have secondary scoring, Sebastian Aho would be in a lot of trouble because he's not doing much in this series compared to what he does in the regular season.
And Neil, I agree with you about Sebastian. It's interesting, and we all know this, that over the course of the time you're tracking players and you're saying, okay, on the upswing or on the downswing. There was no way anybody would have said that Taylor Hall was on the upswing in Chicago. I mean, that was his reality at the time. Give him full marks for being able to find his way. The Carolina Hurricanes put him in a spot where he can have success. But Taylor can still skate. And I thought Rod Brindamore did a really nice job putting Taylor Hall up with Aho. Because Taylor Hall can open up some space, and then Aho can make those plays. It's almost like unlocking Sebastian Aho. Because when I watch Sebastian, to Neil's point, he's been one of those rare players whose points per game in the playoffs are higher than they've been in the regular season. And this playoffs, he hasn't been dangerous. This isn't about this series. It's been since game one of the first round. He just hasn't been himself, hasn't been dangerous. He knocked down the puck, made the great backhand pass to Taylor Hall. Maybe this is a moment where, you know, a little bit of a change in his line mates, a little bit of success gets him sprung. Because if he gets sprung, it'll take some of the pressure off. Because to Neil's point, you know, you think about who scores. I mean, Martinook scores, Jordan Staal scores. They're getting scoring. Taylor Hall scores. They're getting scoring from different areas. Svechnikov was able to find the net. If they get some from their top end, it could be really dangerous for Vegas.
So let me go to the other end, because the big question now heading into Game 4 is what Carolina does in goal. I think a lot of people, including myself, and I believe you, Neil, also, we thought that Brandon Bussi was going to be their guy because of Freddie Anderson's past. And Freddie Anderson has taken them to 13 wins in these playoffs. But as I said earlier in the show, I thought of the 4 goals that he gave up, I did not like the third one, the hat trick goal by Marner. And the one rub that I've always had against Anderson is he doesn't make the saves that he's not supposed to make on a frequent enough basis in relation to other NHL goaltenders. So maybe this game is just an outlier for him, or maybe it's time to go to Bussi.
You know, I'm not a coach again, and I'm not Rod Brindamore, and I don't have the goalie coach on my staff, and I don't have the psychologist on my staff and all the rest of it. But boy, oh boy, Brandon Bussi came in after sitting on the bench for the whole playoffs, came in and played lights out, I thought, in that third period in the overtime. He was like when I watched him during the regular season. This is an undrafted kid who played at Western Michigan. Of course, I have to mention that. He's from Long Island, New York. I mean, he's a great story, but I thought he looked terrific. Now, I don't know how you don't start him, because if you go to Freddie and Freddie lets in a couple of goals, it'll be, why didn't you start Bussi? Bussi really didn't even let in a goal. The goal that went in, he didn't let it in. I mean, it didn't beat him. You know, it's going to be a tough decision for Rod. I'm sure he'll make the right one, but I am looking forward to seeing Bussi start. I think Bussi played terrific.
When we look at it too, and you start to consider your point, Vic, where Freddie finds himself right now, I also look at it this way, and to Neil's point, there's a lot of other factors that go into it, people that are close to the situation. But right now, I don't think the Vegas Golden Knights look at Freddie Anderson as an obstacle. And, do you give him something different to think about? Mitch Marner, post-game last night, if you can believe this, he said he was tired on the penalty shot, and he didn't know they'd switch goalies. Like, what were the coaches doing on the bench? He said he didn't. Yeah, I know, Neil. Isn't that shocking? I was making notes because I was working last night. I said, Bussi starts third period. That's what Mitch said. He said he didn't know that they had changed goalies. So you have a left-handed catch goalie and then a right-handed catch, and he said he was tired. So that's amazing to me. But I don't think the Vegas Golden Knights look at Freddie Anderson and go, we use the term, is he in their heads? He's not in their heads. So I think there's a legitimacy. Yeah.
I think that's a great point. I mean, I really do, Craig. That's a great point. You go back to Freddie Anderson again, and I think the Vegas Golden Knights will say, oh, thank God. Because we know this guy. We know this guy. We don't know that kid. We don't know where the heck did he come from. And, of course, they don't see Carolina. They're in the West. I think that's a great point. I think maybe you go to Bussi because it's going to really upset the apple cart for Vegas.
Well, it makes them think differently. And if you can make scores just hesitate for a second, and even just the look, like he's got a different look than Freddie. He catches differently. He's got a different stance. And you just change the whole. They've had 3 games looking at Freddie. They've been prepared for Freddie. Their goaltending coach, their scouting reports are all been about Freddie. Now they got to get ready for Bussi. And you know what's happening when Bussi goes in there. I mean, Mitch didn't know. So, now they're going, tell me about Bussi. What do I need to know? What do I need to know? Yeah. What do I need to know, right? Yeah. Make him keep trying to find information on Bussi.
Oh, you're absolutely bang on, I think, on that point.
We're going to come back to this at the end of the show, but Craig, we're going to keep you around here because there's certainly a lot of newsworthy items that have taken place over the last few days. Leading our list, Detroit Red Wings captain Dylan Larkin wants out, or at least that's what's being reported. He has 5 more years at $8.7 million per year. The Red Wings have not made the playoffs in 10 years. Given the amount of term that is left on this deal, who's got the hammer?
Like in terms of Detroit or Larkin?
Yeah.
I think they both do, Vic, and that may sound like a waffling answer, and I'll tell you why. I mean, Dylan Larkin is a hell of a player. 5 years left on his contract, and certainly when you make that request and you want out, bottom line is I don't think it's healthy for a team to keep him around. But for Steve Yzerman and the Detroit Red Wings, because he's such a good player with such a good contract, he'll have no lack of suitors coming into him. And same thing happened. Let's not forget, this happened with Quinn Hughes. It's happened with others over the course of time in the history. I'm just using Quinn Hughes as recently. There was lots of suitors for Quinn Hughes, and there'll be lots of suitors for Dylan Larkin. So I think, Steve, you're disappointed to hear that from your captain. I mean, Dylan Larkin is a Michigan guy. He's only played in Michigan his entire hockey career. So that's disappointing. But at the same time, I think he's lost faith in where the Detroit Red Wings are. Anybody that's serious about adding a really, really strong player that isn't phoning Steve Yzerman, then they're not serious about winning.
I don't understand this whole situation with Dylan Larkin, who I think has a Red Wing tattooed on his forehead. As you said, he's from Michigan. He's a perfect player for the Ilitches. They love homegrown kids. He's a Michigan kid. They made him captain. Stevie Yzerman did. I think the way he plays, you just got to love this guy. I mean, what GM wouldn't want to have Dylan Larkin on their team? But I don't understand what's going on. And what I think and what I hope is not true is that Dylan Larkin has given up faith in what the Red Wings are doing. Because if that's the case, Stevie will be in real trouble, whether his name's Stevie Yzerman or Stevie Wonder. He's going to be in trouble with the Red Wing fans. They're already very, very antsy about getting back to the playoffs, as they should be. And all of a sudden, he's not number 19 anymore. He's Steve Yzerman, the GM, that they're not happy with. And when Dylan Larkin, a crowd favorite, I mean, who in the building, Little Caesars Arena, isn't a fan of Dylan Larkin. I can't imagine there's any. It's a bad situation, I think, for Steve and for the Detroit Red Wings.
We also lost a couple of executives over the weekend. On Friday, former Buffalo Sabres captain and general manager Jerry Meehan passed away at age 79. And also Friday, Cliff Fletcher passed away at the age of 90, spent 25 years with the Maple Leafs, led the Flames through their move from Atlanta to Calgary in 1980. The team made the final in 1986 before losing to the Canadiens, but then the Flames won their only Stanley Cup in 1989. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in the Builders category in 2004, and I know both of you had very close ties with Fletcher.
Well, I'm going to just be really quick here because Neil made deals with Cliff and was there with him for a long time. I go back to Cliff starting with the Montreal Canadiens. If you want to know how much he loved hockey, he was in a sales job when he started working for the Montreal Canadiens, and he was scouting for $200 a year. And he said, and a jacket, a Montreal Canadiens jacket, and that's what mattered to him. And I think when we talk about Cliff being so invested in hockey and how much he loved hockey, and I think that start and all the way to the end was special about Cliff. We know what he's a Hall of Fame manager. He was just such a terrific person.
I knew Cliff for a long time. When I think of Cliff Fletcher, I'll always think of 1972 and the Atlanta Flames and the New York Islanders get franchises, and they go to the draft, and the number one pick, the flip of the coin or whatever they did, went to the Islanders. They picked Billy Harris. The Atlanta Flames picked Jacques Richard, and those two franchises were born that way. And that was during the WHA days, and the WHA was raiding those two expansion teams like crazy. And then Cliff, stayed with the Flames all that way, as you said, transitioned them out of Atlanta into Calgary, into an old building, the Corral, where the boards were about 8 feet tall, and had Lanny McDonald play there. And I think he got the 60 goals playing in that building that year.
Yeah.
And they eventually won the Stanley Cup, and he gets a lot of credit for great deadline deals that he made to win that Stanley Cup. And then leaving Calgary, hired by Toronto, and I think brought respectability back to the Toronto Maple Leafs after a long period of no respect with the Harold Ballard era when they were just abysmal. And I think that Cliff really brought respectability back. The other thing about Cliff that I think his image should be hanging in the rafters, he made a trade for a league-wide franchise player, and that's Matt Sundin, who was emblematic that it was the best thing that ever happened to Toronto Maple Leafs for 2 decades. And Cliff was the one that traded for him. And if for no other reason, he should have a great amount of accolades just for that one trade. He helped me in 1994, actually, to win the Stanley Cup, in that I made a trade at the last minute of the trading deadline, sending Mike Gartner to Toronto for Glenn Anderson, basically. Of course, we both didn't know at that time whether we were helping each other or who was helping who. But Cliff was around a long time. He was one of the old guard. You'd go to the GM meetings, and down that end of the room, you'd see Pulford, you'd see Bobby Clark, you'd see Bill Torrey, you'd see Cliff Fletcher. All the guys that you were scared of were sitting all down in that murderer's row down that end of the GM meeting. And he was obviously a great GM, a great hockey man, but always had time for everybody. He never had an ego, as far as I could see in this thing. He'd talk to anybody and everybody. Just a terrific hockey person. I'm lucky to have known him. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Neil, too. And, one of the things that Cliff talked about, too, when he made that trade for Matt Sundin, like, you talk about having the stones. He traded Wendell Clark. Yeah. And he said he cried when he made that trade. He reacquired Wendell a few years later. But Cliff understood what Wendell meant to the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, in the 80s, Wendell was the guy that, was in every battle. And there wasn't many that were in the battle. What a tremendous trade. And the players all talk about how well he treated them and how much he respected them. And I think that was always the case with Cliff. When I went to Calgary as the manager, Bob Clark told me, he said, when he started as a manager, Cliff mentored him. He goes, the players in Calgary always talk positively about Cliff, and he'd always go to Cliff. And Bob Clark said, he goes, Craig, he goes, you're not going to be able to spend the money that the other big teams can spend, but if I ever hear about you not treating the players right, he goes, I'm coming to Calgary and I'm going to kick your ass. But that was the influence of Cliff.
And Neil, what about Jerry Meehan?
Well, I knew Jerry Meehan from his time as the GM of Buffalo Sabres. So Jerry's got his law degree, and he was a very sharp guy. I think Craig would agree with me. He's a very intelligent, sharp guy. There's a lot of things he could have been doing besides being GM of the Buffalo Sabres. I made a couple of trades with him, and I'll just say about one because it's one of the trades that I was most infamous for back in New York because of the way it worked out. For whatever reason, they didn't like Ray Sheppard, and they were going to send him down to the minors. And I said, well, would you just give him to me for future considerations? And the future considerations can be $1. So he said, okay. And he traded him to me for $1. And I told the press, of course, in New York, I said, I got him for $1. And he went on to score goals like crazy for the Rangers. And the next year, if you remember, Craig, signed as a free agent with the Detroit Red Wings and scored a pile of goals for Detroit. He was a really good goal scorer. And that's the one trade that I'll remember with Jerry Meehan more than anything because we made so much fun out of the $1 trade.
Well, I mean, that was future considerations. And what would that dollar be worth today? I don't know. Yeah. But, it's always interesting to think about how future considerations went and how you tried to work with deals. Those days are a bygone era. But it speaks to the managers trying to be creative. And there's a perfect example. So, Neil is looking, okay, why don't you give Ray Sheppard to me? He may have, been in a spot in Buffalo where it wasn't going to work anymore. And Jerry goes, okay, you know what? I want to do right by the player, an NHL player. And those types of things, understanding that, sometimes the right thing, and today's, wow, my God, can you believe they only got $1 for him or you only got a 6th-round draft pick for him? Sometimes it's just about human decency. Sometimes it's just about treating people right. And Jerry was a very intelligent guy. I know, Neil, you would have had way more dealings with him, but it was always a pleasure to talk to Jerry because, he might be talking about something that was non-hockey, but he was interested in so many things, but always a pleasure. And it always seemed like when Jerry saw you, he was as happy to see you as you were happy to see him.
Yeah. And let's not forget, too, he was a good hockey player. I mean, he was the captain of the Buffalo Sabres and played a long time, and he'll be missed. Whenever I hear that one of these folks have passed, whether it's Claude Lemieux, God rest his soul, or it's one of these two gentlemen we just talked about, immediately I start to think, when's the last time I saw him? When's the last time I saw him? When did I last speak to him? Because you start wishing that you had been able to talk to him sooner than you did. And so they'll all be missed. The hockey circle is tight, and those two gentlemen will be missed. And I've got the greatest memories of both of them.
We have some more executive news. This is a little bit more on the positive side. Former Kings general manager Rob Blake is now the executive vice president of hockey ops in Nashville. He'll be working alongside Chris McFarland, who was named GM and president last week. We have some awards to announce. Connor McDavid wins his 5th Ted Lindsay Award. That is the best player in the NHL as voted on by the players. Nick Suzuki wins the Selke, beating out Anthony Cirelli and Brock Nelson. Cole Caulfield, also the Canadians, wins the Lady Byng, beating out Andrzej Kopitar and Jake Sanderson. And Andrei Vasilevsky takes the Vezina, beating out Ilya Sorokin and Jeremy Swayman. For Vasilevsky, it's his 2nd Vezina. He won prior in 2019. Any surprises there before we close the show?
I want to say something really quick. I love the way the NHL now is delivering the trophies and telling everybody who the winner is. I think it's so creative. I think it's fun. I mean, Nick Suzuki thinks he's going to surprise Cole Caulfield. Cole Caulfield thinks he's going to surprise Nick Suzuki. Somebody had to go first, and then the second guy, the guy that went first, didn't realize that he was going to be surprised after. The police stopping Andrei Vasilevsky to pull him over and check his car, and then they deliver the vest. I just think it's so creative, and I think it's fun, and the way they've done it. I think with the voters, this is the way I look at it. I mean, we all have our personal opinions. as a voter, our ballots are all made public, right? You're going to have ones you disagree with, and the ballot will tell you that and everything like that. I just feel that when we get to this group of players, they're deserving, they've been top players and everything. And so we can say, okay, maybe this guy deserved to win it, or maybe that guy deserved to win it. I mean, I thought Sorokin was the best goalie in the league this year. I don't think the Islanders would have been where they're at. I mean, I don't think the Buffalo Sabres would have been where they're at without Rasmus Dahlin. So we can look at those two trophies, but, I congratulate the players that win because they're top-notch players.
And I think if you're in the top three and you're mentioned at the dance, that's a great honor. It's a great honor to be one of those three. If you're Brock Nelson, I mean, what a great thing for him, to be a candidate to win the Selke. So I agree with you, Craig, and I think that it's just a wonderful honor just to be mentioned for one of these prestigious awards.
Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Finals will be Tuesday, 8 o'clock on ABC in the States and Sportsnet and CBC up in Canada. Extra day off, which usually takes place now on travel days, but because the conference finals both ended earlier, ABC obviously wanted that primetime window, hence only one day in between games 2 and 3. Who's benefiting more from the extra day off here, Neil?
I mean, at this point, I guess everybody's banged up. I don't know that either team is considerably older than the other. Mark Stone, I'm certain, would love these days off. I really don't know. In our day, 94, we had 2 days off between 6 and 7, and there was no doubt in my mind that we were going to get the biggest benefit out of that because we had an older team, and I think we did. But in this one, I'm really not sure who's going to get the benefit out of it. It all depends on who's more banged up.
Craig, I wanted to ask you, how about from a mental standpoint, though? Because obviously, I think if Vegas had lost after blowing a 4-0 lead and also losing a late lead in Game 2, I think that would have been devastating for them. I do believe that Carolina perhaps has maybe a little bit more bounce-back ability in this situation than Vegas would have.
Yeah, I agree with that. And because if they would have lost that Game 3, now you got to sit for an extra day thinking about it. You're stewing about it. The coaches are scowling. You're watching video of how did this happen. You're being asked question after question and everything that goes with it. One of the things that I find fascinating, I'm with Neil here, and I'm not so sure anybody benefits, which leads me to believe you're at this point in the playoffs, you're playing every other day. I bet you the players would have liked to have played Monday because you're just in that rhythm. And now you got to go find another off day to go find something and do something. Not that that's bad for rest, don't get me wrong here, but I think it's interesting. For me, Vic, I want to be very clear based on the numbers and stats you gave us at the beginning. 18 of the 25 goals have been scored after the halfway point of the game. So I'm not going to start watching until halfway through Game 4, but I'm not going to turn it off regardless of who's winning, thinking that somebody's got it in the bag.
Yeah. How many people did you hear from that said, I went to bed when it was 4-0 and I woke up in the morning and it ended up 5-4? The two things I want to bring up on injuries and getting time off. AndreMiller looked like he had a problem with his abductor or something, the way he was being stretched out. Carrier got hurt for the Hurricanes and wasn't able to come back in that game. Is there other obvious ones that are going to need some rest? And as I said, everybody's got bumps and bruises, but there's a couple guys went to the locker room. Right, I think Hannafin got hit really hard one time and had to go right down to the locker room. Guys are playing with subluxed shoulders and, hairline fractures in their feet and all kinds of things.
Chatfield went through that open door.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and I wanted to say that too, Braden McNabb, and we talk about hockey players. The next injury report on a hockey player that says unavailable because of a soft tissue injury will be the first one.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth?
Craig, thanks for joining us again, and perhaps we get you on again right before the NHL draft and give us a little bit of insight on the prospects coming up. Our website is NHLWraparound.com, and Neil and I will be back with Stanley Cupdate on Wednesday. Thanks for tuning in.